where we will be discussing personal preparation and equipment planning for solo AR and team AR. And tonight we have with us lovely panelists to talk to us about nutrition, hydration, gear, and kit for solo and team adventure racing. So we have none other than the co-director for the Beast now, Eoghan Carton, who works as an engineer with the Irish Defence Forces, and he has a great history of adventure racing now for over 13 years. And he's raced abroad in Iterra's, God Zone in New Zealand, and several the Adventure Racing World Series in 2014. Unfortunately, tonight, Heather Nicholl is not feeling well and she can't join us. She's very ill and sends her apologies. And we have some notes from her. We have Pat O'Callaghan, our Expedition Africa racer from County Limerick. And he first caught wind of the Beast of Ballyhura in the newspaper of all places. And this led him to take part in various adventure races, Gale Force, War, which was the old Wicklow adventure race series. And he did his first Beast in 2011, and he has participated in every one of them except 2019, which was in County Antrim, as well as many other 24-hour races. And he's also competed in Iterra, which was held in Ireland in 2016, and Expedition Africa in 2019. We have Kellyanne Speight from Enniskillen and now based in Scotland. And she's a seasoned triathlon, ultra runner representing Ireland at the World Trail Running Championships in 2019. She also loves adventure racing and began in 2016 while living in Australia. And she's competed in several 24 and 48-hour adventure races in Australia, as well as Iterra in Scotland. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel. And I'm going to turn off this screen unless you need it, panelists. Just bear with me now. There we go. So tell us now, Eoghan, how you plan for an adventure race and what do you do to get yourself ready mentally and from the point of view of equipment?
From equipment, well, I suppose, well, first of all, regarding this webinar, I'm conscious that we're going to be giving some tips on our experience, and there's probably not going to be a whole load of adventure racing going on this year. So people will probably be logging into this on the website next year, or maybe during the winter of 2021-22 to get some tips, you know. So I'm conscious that, and that's pity, but you never know. Maybe we'll get something towards the latter end of the year. Regarding preparation of equipment, I'm probably speaking mainly from the team AR side. It's quite a while since I did a lot of the solo stuff. The most important thing, I think, when it comes to preparing not just equipment but everything, is the race schematic, or whatever pre-reading or pre-information that the race organization sends out, and that's nearly like your Bible. And I think everybody should take that, and they'll drip feed bits and pieces of information, you know, in the weeks and days before the race. But there'll be a schematic, hopefully, in a well-organized race. Take that and literally analyze it and read every word in it and find out what you're being asked to do. And that is the template for preparing your kit and your food and everything else we'll talk about. But your kit, and let's say if it's a multi-day race, 3 or 5 or 8 days or something, or multi-stages, and you have 2 or 3 stages per day, you're going to pack your kit per stage, and the template, or the race schematic gives you a template for that. I'm sure the other panelists will give other bits and pieces, and we'll come in and out on it. But one of the important things for me is standardization. So you pack your kit, ziplock it, label it, standardize it as best as possible. So you might have 3 or 4 trekking stages over a 5-day race. It's best if they're all the same, the bags, as similar as possible. So if you grab the wrong one a couple of days into the race, it actually doesn't matter. Or if another teammate grabs one of yours, it doesn't matter either. So that's a really important thing. As I said, label it, and standardizations. There's some of the basic introductory points, and I can give a few more. We'll see what you have to say.
Can I ask all the participants to please put themselves on mute, with the exception of the panelists? So, Pat, you recently took part in Expedition Africa. So what would you like to say to the points that Eoghan just raised and beyond?
Yeah, no, definitely. The race schematic is vital. You really need to come to these races prepared to go. So as Eoghan says, what you do is for each stage, you know in advance you're going to be doing a hiking stage, and then maybe a biking stage, and then maybe a kayak or whatever, just to have your gear ready. And as Eoghan says, standard, just have the same gear so that you do, like, the idea is really to use as little gear as you can possibly get away with, because you don't want to be carrying weight and stuff like that, but you still need to carry the mandatory gear, and you need to keep safe. You know, anytime a race organizer puts items down on a kit list, they're not trying to make life awkward for us. You know, you have to be prepared for worst case scenario, just in case the weather turns nasty or something like that. And then also, obviously, the most important part of your kit for any race is your teammates. So you need to look after each other, and just just keep everything going, keep everyone comfortable. Know when someone is not feeling the love for the race, and likewise they look out for you when things aren't going right for you. But yeah, we could talk all night about gear for specific stages and all that. It's just you need gear that you're comfortable with. You've raced in before. Don't ever come along with something that you haven't worn before. Be it a short 5 or 6 hour expert race in Killarney, or Expedition Africa, or whatever you want to be doing. You need to wear gear that you've worn before, you're comfortable with, and yeah, that's about it really.
Yeah, and I think just what Pat's saying there, just be familiar with your equipment as well. Like, even just, for example, like your bike, making sure it's a bike that, you know, that you've been training on, and not just borrowing a bike at the last minute. I mean, sometimes that is, you know, maybe necessary, but making sure that you're familiar, and that, you know, you've got the right spares. So obviously, particularly for longer events, you're going to be carrying your essential equipment, which you'll have a list of. But you know, you're going to want your basics in terms of spare inners and being able to change a puncture and so forth. And obviously, as a team, you're going to be aware of your weight, and there's no point everybody carrying the same equipment, but just making sure that it's all divided among the team. And you know, you'll have your essential equipment, and then things that you might think that you might want to put in as an extra, but just spreading that and the weight across the team. Yeah, and then thinking of things that you might have in your first aid kit as well, that are always handy to have, antihistamines, or, you know, being able to look after your feet and strap them up if there's anything minor that you can do along the way.
And I've also heard that it's a good idea, and we did at some race, to bring Imodium, because sometimes the tummy gets a little upset.
Yeah, these are things that are always handy to have, because having them might make the difference of having to pull out or be able to keep going even to the kind of transition area where there might be, you know, some extra help, or a medic or something.
And Pat, I believe you said that salt tablets were important for you in the hotter climate.
Yeah, and even here at home in Ireland, I suppose, gear can be important, and sometimes you can put on too much gear. Especially here, you go out on the stage and you put on a coat because you're going to think you need it, and you could be very surprised how much you would sweat over the course of an hour or two. So yeah, we discovered salt tablets really helped us in Africa. The weather wasn't very hot; it was probably similar to summer's days here, but the fact that we kept taking salt tablets regularly, no one had cramps, no one had any issues like that. You know, you obviously need to drink water as well, but you're no matter how cold it is outside, you're still perspiring, you're still losing salt out of the body. You just need to keep it keep it replenished. Okay.
And in planning your food as well, you guys in our preparatory meeting had a lot of interesting tips about food and, how many calories you plan to. Oh, someone is asking a question here. What's a good brand of salt tablets?
Yeah, don't ask me. To be honest, it was Jim Connolly supplied us with the drugs in Africa. I don't know whether you're there or not, Jim, but
I'm sure the pharmacist would be able to advise that person, Stephen, who asked, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in any salt, just so that you're getting salt into the body, anything will do. But I definitely found him a great addition in that race anyhow. Because I would have had a history of having cramps before, especially when you change disciplines. The kayak can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Because I suppose you're confined. You don't get to drink as much and eat as much in the kayak as you normally would. And yeah, just to keep yourself hydrated and keep salt into the body.
One of the important things with salt then is that they're great, the salt tablets and that, and the ones that also you can dissolve in water, but it's very important to use them in your training as well. And I know we're going to talk about hydration and nutrition probably separately, or we'll move on to it, but just while we're mentioning them, you can't just start using something like that in the middle of a big race, especially if it's abroad, without seeing how it reacts to your body under normal conditions at home first.
Definitely. Yeah, I see Chris putting up Noon. Personally, Noon tablets are my go-to always anyhow. I don't know how other people have found, but I found them. They're they seem to be fairly natural. There isn't an awful lot of addition in them, and the flavors are palatable. You can still keep drinking them. Some of the fancier brands seem to get you just get sick of the taste after a day or two. But again, as Eoghan said, it's all personal. You need to, whatever you're using in training, you need to use it in a race.
No, nothing new in a race.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some points as well, talking about food, to front load your fresh food, to eat all that first on a multi-day or a long format race, obviously, and make sure you're eating food that you're used to eating. So would you guys like to talk on that point?
I guess from an adventure racing point of view, particularly the longer ones, I mean, you might be packing your food for a kind of at least a 5-day event, perhaps. So, it's kind of just thinking ahead. You might well be surprised about the amount of food that you need, and having quite a good variety, we've always found, is something it's good to work, because you're just not going to. You may not know what you're going to stomach at particular stages, but certainly, lots of good quality fresh food to be used at the beginning, making lots of sandwiches. You might even want some pasta, and that'll often kind of keep for maybe 24, 48 hours, that you can use that at the start, and then having things that are more that are going to last. I guess maybe you're going to have packing plenty of nuts and cereal bars and things like that. I know in in Scotland, we found it useful to have packed little small jet boils, because having a hot meal, particularly whenever you're kind of night 3 and whenever it's getting cold, can certainly be something that's much needed, and and a good way to kind of get the calories in, particularly with kind of freeze-dried food, some of them which can be quite energy dense within quite a light packet. And just having a hot meal as well, particularly if you've come off a kind of long kayak stage or where you're quite cold, can go down well.
Sorry, go on, Pat.
Yeah, no, I suppose, food is important, and you need to eat regularly. I've had a few bad experiences, I suppose, with food. If you don't look after yourself at the start of a race and you don't eat properly, your stomach can just give out to you. So you need to just ease yourself into these kind of races, get enough food, and especially for the first day or two, you can eat as regularly as you can at home. You can eat the foods that you normally eat. You can have sandwiches or whatever else. Whereas day 2 or day 3, you really need to be probably going to more boil in the bag stuff like Kellyanne said there, or bars or that kind of stuff. Personally, I stay away from the likes of the gels and these kind of things because they're really only for a shorter race. They're for a kick. You know, if you need something for the last hour of a Gale Force West or something like that, just to keep you going. But I've seen people using too many of them in longer races, and yeah, it just doesn't agree with the body. Yeah, and then food. I suppose food we normally have to pack it again. Going back to the schematic that Eoghan mentioned earlier, you know when you get a schematic for a race, you know what the stages are. You know that you're going on a trekking stage. You know that the trekking stage might be 20k, 30k, 40k. So then from that you can work back how much food you're going to need. So it could be 3 hours food, 4 hours food, 5 hours food, 10 hours, 20 hours, depending on the stage. So that all needs to be prepared beforehand so that you know what you need to take with you. I don't know, have you any more to add there, Eoghan?
Yeah, a few things on food. I think the most important thing with food, for me anyway, is not to shock the body. So again, we're talking multi-day races, and your body's going to be under savage stress for the duration of the race from the first few minutes or hours anyway. So from my experience, you should never eat or put something in your body that you wouldn't normally do under normal conditions either, because it's under enough stress already and it's just going to go into emergency mode and shut down on you if you start eating. Because people have a tendency to say, oh, sign up for an adventure race or an ultra marathon or something like that, and they look online and or could look online and say, yeah, we're going to buy all these gels and all this expensive freeze dry stuff, and there is a time when it's needed towards the end, but if you don't practice with it, your body's just going to go, what the hell is this stuff, and shut you down. So try and keep it as normal as possible. And there's a few real good tricks I learned over the last few years from different people around the country, different people that race with. One of the good ones is to try and replicate your actual meals throughout the day. So at breakfast time, eat a breakfast type meal. At some, porridge or a muesli type meal like that. At lunchtime, have a lunch type meal, so a sandwich or something like that, and have it at that time of the day. And in the evening, have a main meal, a dinnery type of meal as best as you possibly can, and maybe a supper. And then throughout the night, you wouldn't normally be taking in big, massive volumes of food in your normal life. So try and avoid that if you can. It won't always work, but if you can, and the body sort of stays in sync as best as possible. That was a really good trick or piece of advice I picked up along the way. It was already mentioned the importance of the first 24 hours, and that's for a number of reasons. First of all, it's your best opportunity to get in the fresh food, the real goodness, and that's the only opportunity you're guaranteed to have that during a race that's several days long. You're not guaranteed at any other stage. So if you miss that, you're on the back foot regarding your nutrition. You just won't get it from the freeze dry stuff. Therefore, later in the race, so the fresh food early on. I have a particular memory from that, or 2019. Kellyanne mentioned it there. In the first night, so we were only maybe 12 hours in, and we cycled across Scotland from east to west, and we were on sort of a lake system, starting a kayak, which ultimately would be 24 hours long. But the beginning of it, and it was a really, really nice night. The moon, the full moon was out, and we were kayaking across the lake in the dark, eating steak. The fours, Kellyanne and Emma cooked up steaks there, medium, I'd say they were, and so it's still a bit tender on the inside. They were lovely, and we were chomping on them as we went across the lake. Now the rest of the night turned out to be horrific weather, but that's particular, like getting that kind of good food in. That's really important. What else to have? Yeah, I know. Yeah, the final one down I wrote down on food is the way people tend to pack food, and again, schematic. How important it is. Pre-race information. People pack bags per hour. So, if you had an 8-day race, you could have 8 days worth of 8-hour bags or 10-hour or 12-hour bags. And each bag is the same or sort of the same, and it's easy to grab it. You don't need to worry about which one it is because they're all kind of the same. from 2 days onwards. So that's really good as well.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had to think about to say about nutrition was caffeine, which kind of on a normal day, you know, I'd probably have a couple of coffees and maybe a couple of cups of tea. Obviously an adventure race, and you've not got that luxury of having a hot drink, and your body gets adapted to relying on caffeine throughout the day, and then suddenly you're in an adventure race where you're getting minimal sleep. So a kind of a tip that I've picked up over the years is just kind of trying to limit your intake of the caffeine for the months leading up to a big event, kind of to reduce your tolerance to it. And then I remember particularly for Itera, you know, you're kind of just trying to leave it for as long as possible. Some of these transition stations might have access to a boil, you know, hot water where you can, or maybe tea and coffee, which you can make it up at the transition point, and just kind of trying to delay taking that first cup of coffee. And then whenever you do take a caffeinated drink, you feel the effect more than what you would have if you'd not had gone off the coffee for the months leading up to it. And then I guess, yeah, kind of thinking of coffee, you know, always like to pack kind of like a pick-me-up drink, and that might be a Coke, and just have those kind of scattered among the bags that will be in the transition areas. And often one might just be shared out among the team, but yeah, it definitely helps. And whenever it's in the middle of the night and you're struggling to keep awake.
Yeah, would
Probably
you
worth
recommend
mentioning
caffeinated beverages? Sorry,
Go on,
go ahead.
Darryl, yeah.
No, just, you know, because I know there's like caffeinated tailwind sometimes, but if you have too much of it, you get those crashes.
Yeah, I think it's also one of those things that you need to, you know, particularly if you're taking caffeinated drinks or gels, you know, be familiar with it and have tried it out beforehand in training or whatever. But I think it's maybe just being aware that in a normal day, like, well, I guess everyone's a bit different, and some people don't drink very much coffee or tea during the day, but whenever you get used to it, your body does maybe become a little bit dependent on it. So I think, yeah, certainly have coming off it for a few months, you just kind of, yeah, I guess your tolerance to it changes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know some people take caffeine tablets during races as well. Personally, I haven't really found any benefit in it, but sometimes, again, it's something. It's personal choice. It's what people are used to, and don't try and do it in a race if you haven't been taking it beforehand.
Yeah.
One thing on caffeine tablets that's very important, and I have used them in most races, because it gets to a stage where you have to, especially if you're navigating, you really do need them at certain times, or some sort of a caffeine boost. If you're planning to, or you think you're coming to a transition and there's a possibility to sleep, don't be taking caffeine within sort of 2 to 3 hours of arriving in that transition, because you get in there, the other 3 members will decide, right, we're going to take an opportunity here, a little bit of a sleep, it's nice and warm, and you're going to sit there and you're just going to be looking at the ceiling for an hour. That's all you're going to do. And I've done that. So, and that's again the importance of trying them out beforehand, to know the effect that different caffeine products might have on your system, whether it's just the caffeine in the Coke, or if people are taking caffeine tablets.
Yeah, personally, a problem I have a lot before races is I can't sleep, and I end up being sleep deprived before you go to a race. Especially sometimes in a beast, you might be getting on a bus at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you go to bed at 1 o'clock and you can't sleep. So what I have, my secret weapon is I usually take a few Panadol nights before the races. For maybe 2 or 3 nights beforehand, helps you to get that sleep in the bank before a race. Just something that has worked for me. I know we did it a bit for other races, just so that you can make sure you get a good night's sleep, because personally I'm a person that would be tossing around in the bed looking at the ceiling saying I need to be asleep. And I have found they do the trick. And then during the nights, as I say, I have never taken caffeine tablets, but personally what I find is trying to keep yourself cold, maybe taking off a layer, making yourself a little bit less comfortable at night helps you to stay awake. You know, I found it to just take off that jacket and just take yourself out of the comfort zone a little bit, and it just helps with the sleep. But again, that's my experience. I don't know. What do you think, Owen? You've done more long nights than I have.
Oh, just waiting for dawn. That's it. Just how far away is it? Yeah. It's the importance of your teammates. I found that if you're on the map, and over the last few years, I found myself on the map more often, navigating. That'll keep you awake, I think. And sometimes the people who are not navigating might struggle a bit more, but it'll hit a point where the brain will only go so long, and you go into shutdown mode. So it's important to plan that and know when that's going to be. Like for me, I know that I can go maybe 40 hours and then nothing happens, so you have to have a contingency then that someone else is going to take the map, and you kind of tag along behind them, or you need to sleep. I know we're deviating a bit there, but yeah, to understand your own body and how it's going to react under the different conditions.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just more important to get that bit of sleep than trying to fight on, especially for the navigator. If it comes to the stage that you're too tired to be able to concentrate, you're at nothing. That half an hour power nap can get everyone back again.
Sometimes you can have your teammates playing tricks and telling you that you've had like a 2-3 hour sleep, and then a few days later at the end of the race you find out, oh no, that was just a 30-minute nap. But the psychological impact where you're told that, I think I remember Chris doing that on us.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I don't remember, but I know what happened.
Yeah. It can the difference between a 30-minute sleep and a 3-hour sleep. Sometimes you can be better off with the 30 minutes, because if you go into a more substantial sleep, you just can't get going again.
That's the importance of the team training together and being on the same page, that you're all in the same cycle and you're synchronized. And a team in a long race can't afford to have 4 or 5 separate long sleeps to cater for each person. But if it can definitely afford to have, depending on the race, a good long sleep. And if everybody is able to sleep, not overdosed on caffeine, and you're all on the same page, that's great. And that's all back down to, again, working together, just talking about it in the lead up to the race and planning properly and understanding each other, how you're all going to react.
Yeah, you were saying that you might be racing with people but you also might be racing with people you never met. And it's important to discuss your shared expectations. What is your goals? And definitely. How do you feel about short course? Who would like to talk to that?
Yeah, I'd go with that. Yeah, I like. Everybody's going to sign for a race, and either you'll know the people or you won't, and sometimes you won't. Communication the whole way before the race. So in my view, one of the ways I look at it is there's going to be a tough conversation in an adventure race in the process at some stage, whether you're best friends forever, and like before you even got into it, if you're best friends, or if you just met at the start line, or at the registration. There's definitely going to be a tough conversation along the way, no matter how fit or how well in tune you think you are, that this is going to happen. So you might as well, as best as possible, have that conversation on your terms before the race starts, ideally in the medium term up to it, not when you arrive at the race HQ, in the months and weeks beforehand. Discuss what are our expectations here. Are we going to finish the long course? Will we accept moving to the short course after a couple of days if we just can't keep up with the race logistics? Maybe we're going to short course from the beginning because it's a very long course, and we're actually realistic that we have shared expectations, and discussing other stuff as well, like how we're going to deal with problems. How are we going to deal with towing? Like, are we all going to just pretend we're the exact same, have the exact same physical fitness and strength at all times in the race, so we'll just mullock through it? Or are we going to be actually realistic and say towing is very important, because everybody has their ups and downs during the race, and if we want to move as a team, that's good. And instead of a real good team would say, don't ask me, can you go on tow? Tell me you're going on tow. If a team was gelled that well together, that's a high performing team. But that isn't going to happen, you know, during the race. That has to happen beforehand, and it's okay if you don't meet up. But once you're talking about it, this is what's going to happen. So talking about stuff like that and being realistic about your ability, very, very important.
And having that frankness with your strengths and weaknesses, each team member. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, it's important. Like even in the team dynamics, it can change throughout a race. The person that's the strongest person in the team day one might be suffering badly day two or day three. You just need to look after each other, you know, and there's no benefit in the strongest person being on up the road and putting pressure on everyone else. You know, that doesn't help. Sometimes it's better for the strongest person in the team to stay at the back and let the other people up there and not be putting everyone under pressure. Because it can really jar with a team, no matter how strong a team is and how used to people are of racing together. If someone goes off out the front or, you know, just starts putting pressure on other people, it can be very bad for the dynamics. And it can just, you know, a lot of this is as much mental as physical. You need to have it. You need to have a certain amount of fitness, but you also need to be able to just mentally just keep in tune and keep everyone happy and with the same goal. That's my thought, and I see Paul is on here about banter and people and keep. I can remember you singing songs with me, Jacko, around Kerry one night. Maybe the choice of songs weren't the best for where we were even, but it's all a bit of fun when you need to, you know, it's the moments that will be with you after the race. It's when someone starts, you know, I race a lot with Eoghan, Eoghan can just come up with ridiculous things, and he just knows the right time. Everyone is suffering, things have gone quiet, and he just make some ridiculous statement, and it's just exactly what we need at that time. You know, you need the character. You always need the character, just to keep the motivation going and keep everyone in tow.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, Kellyanne. You probably do need.
Yeah, I think particularly whenever it's in the middle of the night, and yeah, I would often struggle with the night paddling, like just because there's nothing to focus on, and in terms of staying awake. But I think, yeah, just trying to talk to one another, and that might be just complete rubbish, or, you know, singing songs. But yeah, I think definitely something that you need to do, particularly as the nights go on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the navigator, sometimes what can happen in the middle of the night is the navigator is in there, obviously on the map, but when things are dark, it's important to keep everyone in tow and just give someone a job and say, we're looking for a junction up here in 2 kilometers, and we, you know, everyone need, because if you start to switch off, then you start to get tired, then the sleep monsters come in. It's all about just keeping everyone together on the same page, and that's the thing, and having a joke and a laugh.
Yeah, everyone's going to hit a low, usually at a different point. So, you know, just with your kind of talking to teamwork, and, you know, not having someone that's just charging on ahead, and just recognizing that, okay, this person's suffering at the moment, but, you know, probably it could well be me in 12, 24 hours or whatever length of time. So just very much, you know, just important to be working together as a team, you know, taking someone's pack or whatever you can to help them through.
Yeah, it's definitely important for a new team. And look, hopefully some of the people here might be enthused and go and do the beast or something in next year or this year or whenever. But it's important just to look after your teammates and, you know, try and keep the team together. And yeah, there'll always be someone that's stronger in the team, but being stronger doesn't mean going out the front and letting everyone behind you.
Team spirit. And even on the short version, short adventure races, like, you know, a 6-hour adventure race or a gale force type of race, I found people were so friendly. You know, people just really help each other along. If someone is struggling, you know, or I'll just chat away to someone, or offer them a spare tube. I saw one guy had he was trying to fix 2 punctures, so I gave him a spare tube. Stuff like that really helps people. Asking them if, you know, they need extra water or whatever like that. We've had a few questions come in just because we've been focusing a lot on long format AR races. Anyone have a few tips just for, solo races, maybe even just solo trail running, or, if you've done something really long? You did the Art O'Neill, I think, Pat.
Yeah. No, like that's where I started. I would have done a lot of the old wars and the Gale forces and that kind of thing. And they're brilliant races, and the camaraderie, and to be honest, a lot of the people that I still know in adventure racing, I know from them days. And yes, as you say, it's important to, motivate people. What can happen a lot is you're going up a hill and someone is coming down the other side, and just a smile and a cheer and a bit of motivation for each other is great. And the banter afterwards, obviously, yeah, when you come for, I know I'm conscious that we've talked a lot about the longer races, like for the shorter races. Personally, I've found that it take as little as you can possibly use. The likes of the bike, I have always used power grips or wrist straps or something like that. I see a lot of people that clip in on the bike. Again, it depends on the races, but a race that has 2 or 3 bike transitions, I don't see any point in someone really clipping in, because you're going to lose so much time changing. And again, for you obviously have to do a kayak or whatever else. So things like this, and the shorter races, like I personally would feel a bit more broken up after a 5-hour gale force than I do after a 24-hour race, because it's so intense. You're really going from the gun the whole time. Whereas the longer races, I suppose the pace is easier. It's more about keeping going. So yeah, I don't know, like you've done a few of the shorter races, I suppose, years ago. And
yeah, I think a lot of the points apply, that even most things we've said still apply. Two things that jump to mind are, your training in advance. If someone signs up for a short adventure race, 3 to 6 hours, or a trail run or something like that, never done it before. So they might think about the training we're going to do beforehand. It could be 6 months out, and maybe kit I might need to buy, because up to now I've only been running, or maybe I only played football or something like that, and I now need to buy some stuff. So training and the kit. The first thing on training is all you need to do is just cover the miles, and don't go crazy out in the mountains every single day of the week and trying to do this. If you can do it once a week, great. But once you're doing something every day, you'd be surprised how well the body can adapt even on the day. So not to be concerned about, just because sign up for an ultra run, need to be doing all these mad. You're just going to wreck the body. Let it adapt to it. And the second one is the kit and equipment. So I've just signed up for a 6-hour race or an ultra or something I've never done before. I see all these people with loads of bags and bottles hanging out on their chest and all sorts of stuff and tubes, and less is more when it comes to kit, and we kind of already said that. So you don't need to go out and buy loads and loads of things. All you need to do is cover the miles and see what you might need if you are out for 3 or 4 hours one of the days. And if you don't have it on the first race you do, that's grand. You'll see someone will have something and buy it, but there's a tendency you could go crazy with kit and food and spend thousands of euros on needless crap that's just going to build up at the bottom of the wardrobe and get in the way, and ultimately you're going to be dumping in a couple of years' time. I've done it, and I'm still getting rid of probably stuff. So that's it with training. Just do something every day, and kit, don't go buying stuff straight away. Just see what you might need as you go along.
Good advice. Paul Mahan here has a comment about shorter races, that it's best to eat early, after even an hour. This way, you can get by for another 2 hours without eating. Don't wait till you're hungry to eat, and also keep drinking, keep sipping away. Don't wait till you're thirsty to start drinking. That's very good advice from Paul.
Yeah, no. Paul would have given me an awful lot of advice, and I know in my early days, telling me, you've too much gear, you've too much this, you've too much that, and he was always right. yeah, you need to bring the mandatory kit. I rocked up to my first Gale Force, and there was a shop there beforehand, and I fell into the trap that Eoghan is saying there. I bought rucksacks and piles of stuff, thinking that I needed it all. A lot of it was never used afterwards. You need good gear that you're comfortable training in all the time. You don't need anything else special, not for the shorter races anyhow. Okay, if you get into the longer races, as you go through races, you need to buy bits of gear depending on the race. When we did Itera, there was a very long kayak stage in it, so we ended up having to buy proper kayaking gear. These things build up over time, but for a shorter race, yeah, you just need what you're training in. Nothing special. Yeah, and as Paul says, eat. What I had found is that you maybe do a bit of carb loading for a couple of days before the race, which helps you as well. Just eat that little bit extra. I personally don't usually eat at all on the shorter races. Maybe have one bar or something like that. But I suppose it's different. It's a completely different discipline, and on the shorter races you're going so hard. Well, I'm not, but the people at the business end of the race are going so hard. It's difficult to get nutrition into you. I have found that the important time to drink is on the bike, usually, because you have access to water there all the time. No one wants to be taking a water bottle up a hill with them. So get your drinking done on the bike. A lot of these races, would have maybe 1 or 2 bike stages with runs in them. So yeah, again, it's a way of getting nutrition into you. Kellyanne, I suppose, would have more experience in the longer running and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably be the same. Like, I think with the longer runs, I can probably get by with maybe not eating as much, and maybe that's just because of the intensity, and in terms of what you're going to be managed to stomach. But I mean, certainly in comparison to the longer events, on the shorter ones, you're looking at kind of more sugary stuff, things that are easy to digest. I mean, I kind of use the gels much less now compared to what I might have done if I was racing triathlon. But again, it's just practicing what you can stomach in training, and then just using that again during the race, not trying out new things on the race day.
A question has come in here from Kay about when you're training as a team, and she wants to know, do you train at night as a team? So I'd like to say definitely. I remember crossing the Reeks as a team. We did the whole Reeks crossing overnight with my team in preparation for the Beast in Donegal in 2017. That was exciting. Any thoughts? That's where you get to test your head torches and your night vision, guys.
Yeah, really, really important. If you can, obviously you need to be realistic as well, and it's not going to be possible the whole way throughout the year. So pick, if I suppose we're going back towards maybe the longer team races, what we're speaking about now. But if your team, and 2 or 3 weekends over the 6 months before the race is probably something realistic that you can do as a team anyway. Long night out on the hills, either biking or trekking. And one of the best things that the team can achieve there is to see how you're going to deal with navigation errors at night. That's not a normal thing like that. Most teams, if we're being realistic, even really, really good teams get lost. And that's mostly going to happen at nighttime. You can be nearly right beside where you need to be, but you just won't see. There'll be some dead ground or something. So it allows the other 2 or 3 people who are not navigating to understand how long it takes to get yourself right. A few minutes, or it could be 20 minutes or half an hour, and that's normal. Like, that's not that. I'm not speaking myself, but that a good navigator could still take quite a bit of time to get themselves right, reorientate, and get moving again. And that allows the team to understand, right, that this is perfectly normal. There's no need to be grabbing the map off him or her and trying to take control or something. I'm not suggesting this happens too often, but it allows them to really form as a team, and also allows them the opportunity to see, well, how could they make use of that time? you know, things really slow down at night. You have a lot more time. Maybe you could get more food in. Maybe we'll bring more food at night if we're on the hills. So the benefits of 2 or 3 good weekends of training beforehand really, really would pay off long term. Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to have them head torches checked out, and you know, everyone dialed in. Again, if people can maybe have similar head torches or similar batteries, it can help to be able to share stuff between each other. It can just, you know, anything to synchronize things that people are, you know, if you pick up the wrong batteries, at least someone else has them as well. It's very useful.
That's a good point you bring up on batteries, because I find it's very, like, it was very hard to get a strong luminance, like 200 lumens head torch that would just use off-the-shelf batteries, because everything is USB lead rechargeable. And obviously, if you're in a long format AR race, you don't have access to a USB charger. So having just off-the-shelf battery operated head torches I would say a good tip. Would you agree?
Yeah. Again, like you don't normally need mad lights in a lot of these races, but you still need to have access to a good head torch if you're up in a mountain looking for a checkpoint. If you're cycling along a mountain, fire roads or something like that, any old cheap head torch will probably do you, but you still need to have something in the bag that when you need the light, or when you get caught up in the reeks in the middle of the night, you need proper lighting. So it's, what I do is I mind the good torch for when you need it, and use the other ones then for the rest of the time.
That's a good point. And another, while we're on it, and we kind of almost touched on expensive equipment earlier, but lights can be very expensive, and especially if you're going abroad as a team, for anything that's 5 days or more, you will need really, really good lights, probably wherever you're going. One of the benefits of the adventure racing community in Ireland is that we all kind of know each other, and now there's a lot more people coming into it. That's great, and they should know that we all know each other, and this is a good thing. That it's unrealistic for me to think I'm going to go out and buy 5 or 6 exposure headlights that cost €180 a pop or something. But I know lots of my friends in the AR community have those, and you know, I'm more than happy to lend mine to people, and people have lent them to me over the years, that you can pack this up and go abroad. So, like, you know, that's one of the really good benefits of this community we have here. We can share equipment like that. And how I said we kind of touched on it, but other gear was, I did say don't be going out buying real expensive equipment, but sometimes you do need real expensive equipment for safety reasons. And what I'm talking about there maybe is clothing for kayaking. There's definitely a couple of races, and 2 Iteras I've done in 2016 in Ireland and 2019 in Scotland. Both of them had a kayak stage that was the exact same length for me, actually, not for everyone else, but for me, 23 hours. I was in a kayak on Loch Corrib and off the west coast of Scotland, and without proper kayak gear, I don't know, it would have been an awful lot different of an experience. That's expensive stuff, and a lot of time we're able to borrow it and share it around, you know. So that's just an offshoot tangent there, but one of the benefits of the community, that we can share this gear amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Everyone that goes away to a race has gear belong to everyone, you know. From experience, in the last race I went to, I had batteries borrowed. I used IUPs usually. I think I had 10 batteries borrowed from maybe 4 different people. But you know, and likewise, I've given loans of gear to people as well. So, okay, yeah, the right gear can be very expensive, but you don't need it all. You know, there's a big community here. Everyone looks after each other. Because the wheel is always turning. They'll be back to you looking for it as well.
That's great team spirit. It says here, if the team have their chief navigator, should anyone else chip in or leave them to it? If the navigator wants to lead, is it best to follow or ask to see the map, have their own map? I recall on one team I was on, we had a bike navigator and then we had the mountain navigator. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts, well,
Any of you? Yeah.
Yeah. I was leaving it to you, and you're the navigator.
Yeah, like the gold standard probably is to have 2 strong navigators, and then also have a team captain that used to maybe navigate in a previous life. That would be the absolute gold standard, and that's what you see in the top teams in the world. Is that realistic? I don't know, probably not. And like as I said, I found myself on the map a bit more often in the last few years. I like it, I enjoy it, but I'd never I'd always welcome someone who wants to come along and share the load a bit there, because you know, it's a different energy expenditure, and your brain actually turns to mush. There's no doubt about it. Like after maybe I was saying maybe 40 hours on the map, nothing will happen. You can't respond. And everybody who's raced with me in anything more than 5 days has seen me in that situation, guaranteed. And I wouldn't hide it. It happened. So having somebody else to assist in any way possible, even, you know, just even pace counting, check bearings, whatever. People should never be afraid to just help out and offer it a little bit. Yeah, that's my experience of that anyway.
Excellent advice.
You know, and navigating is obviously the hardest job in the team, you know, and people need to respect the navigator. We need to stay behind the map. It was always the first rule when I was adventure racing: stay behind the map. And yeah, look, help each other. When you know, I good navigators will always be asking the rest of the team in for help and telling them we're looking for this or looking for that, or asking them to pace it out. It's a team effort at the end of the day.
It's not an exact science, navigating.
And as Eoghan had said earlier, these kind of things, particularly whenever as the race progresses and you get tired, just keeps your brain switched on as well. If you know that you're trying to look out for something, or you know, yeah.
Kellyanne, we have a question here about training for an ultra. Adon wants to know, is he better off doing 5 and 10K runs daily instead of longer runs every few days? How often should he do a long run?
Yeah, I think probably a mixture is good. Like I would normally select a day, usually would usually be a weekend, to set that as your long run, and then as your kind of weeks progress, try to get that longer run longer. And then running regularly throughout the week, and that'll depend on, you know, what your work schedule and so forth allows as well. Sometimes maybe even having kind of back-to-back runs, so you know, depend on the distance of the ultra, but you might well be that you do a long run late in the evening followed by another long run first thing in the morning, again just to kind of, you know, if you're going into longer stuff, it may not be feasible to go for a 5-6 hour run, but just to kind of breaking it down into 2 long runs back to back. And your second run, you're going to be running on kind of tired legs, just to stimulate what it might be like on a race day as well. But yeah, often a key, particularly if you're starting out, is just, you know, getting the miles in. So if it's easier to be running kind of shorter distances with at least 1 long run a week, that usually works.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming in from the crowd. You're excellent panelists. You relaxed into it. I'd like to let the participants know, the viewers know, that we have some slides that were put together from discussion points that the panelists and I had together last week. And I'm also going to add more notes from tonight's meeting that you can reference, as well as the recording. And these will be available for you on the Adventure Racing Ireland website. Any final words? I know we all can't wait to get back racing again. Maybe we'll do a Christmas adventure race.
Yeah, a few final words. Careful of overhydrating. You know, we talk about hydrating, how important it is, but don't overhydrating can be actually more dangerous. I said on food, keep it as normal as possible, but in Portugal in 2018, Keith and Sarah cooked us up about 500 ham and cheese sandwiches, because that's pretty normal And after 2 days, we stopped at the first cafe we could find, and all they had was ham and cheese sandwiches. So watch out for that as well. Bring about 8 spare compasses, you know, 1 per day maybe, because you will lose them and break them, and we did need them. And then finally, again, just to reiterate that race schematic and pre-information, and read every single word. I have this memory of in the INEC before ITERA 2016. You know, I from Ireland drove down, had all the time in the world to prepare for this, didn't do it to full of my ability, and I just have this memory of towards the end of the night trying to get the boxes all in, flapping around, putting in stuff, butter and bread, and Sweetco were just there drinking tea with they hardly even opened their bike boxes because they had them packed on the way over, you know. So they did what they read the schematic, they did it properly. So the importance of that schematic, that's the most important thing, I think. Pre-information and come prepared, because the clock starts all of a sudden and then you're working against it.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely come prepared. There's no point fighting in the boot of your car looking for that bit of gear. Come prepared, as Eoghan said. It makes life a lot easier. And I suppose just reach out if there's anyone there that's on the fence and thinking about getting into it. You know, there's piles of people looking to join teams, and there's piles of us here to help if anyone wants to get involved.
That's excellent.
I think one of the good things about adventure racing is it's very inclusive. So, you know, the race is what you want it to be in terms of whether you're wanting it very much for the adventure and just competing it, just finishing it. And that obviously agreed with your team beforehand, or whether you're wanting to do it competitive and you're doing it at your pace, and you've got the options for the long course and the short course. So yeah, just generally inclusive. So if you've not done an adventure race and you're thinking about it, once things start going, get signed up.
Someone will definitely take you under their wing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially to the panelists for sharing their time so generously. And thank you to the participants for tuning in tonight. So I'd like to also share, there's a blog piece from Rachel Nolan where she's also mentioned a few of the tips that were brought up this evening. If everyone wants to open the chat, Rachel has shared that link. So without further ado, I wish you all a good night, and tune in a fortnight when we'll be hearing from our all about bikes, mountain biking and road biking. And Paul Mahon will have as his panelists Fiola Foley, multiple-time Irish champion rower, adventure racer, semi-pro cyclist, and now a new mama. And Michelle Muldoon, top-class enduro and downhill mountain biker, cycle coach, and personal PE teacher. And Padraig Mary, and if anyone, he started the Sea to Summit up in Westport, endurance cycling record breaker, multiple Ross competitor, and adventure race winner, bike coach, fitter, and postman from Kilchama. So tune in on Wednesday, the 21st of April at 7 p.m. for more exciting discussions. Good night, everybody. God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Much love.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.